Hello, everyone. So, picking off from my introductory speech, we've gone over the definition of what the manosphere actually encompasses. In this speech, I'm going to go more in depth into the core ideologies and unique vocabulary, the different factions of the manosphere, why this matters in real world consequences, the root causes and why men are drawn in, and moving forward, connection over condemnation. So, in my previous speech, we went over the definition of what the manosphere actually is, that it was a vast digital ecosystem that consisted of loosely connected networks of blogs, forums, and social media spaces, especially as an online man cave where ideas about masculinity, gender roles, and male identity were debated. The scale of influence notated that it has moved from the darkest corners of the internet into more mainstream media, fueled by the viral social media content like podcasts and algorithms that serve content to millions. The culture of resentment that has festered explains the unifying thread in a critical stance towards feminism, with many members believing that modern society has become feminized or misandrist. Going into the core ideologies and unique vocabulary, many people might already be aware of some of these terms, mainly red pill and blue pill. Red pill versus blue pill specifically. They use this central metaphor to explain the culture, where taking the red pill means you're awakening to this belief that men are the oppressed gender, while the blue pill represents accepting mainstream feminist views. Essentially, these views of gender discuss the belief of biological determinism, in that the idea that men are naturally dominant and rational while women are more mentally chaotic or hypergamous, meaning that they only seek high status mates. They also have this pseudoscientific claim that mentions that a concept called the 80-20 rule, that is actually a misapplied economic principle used by some in the manosphere to claim that 80% of women only want the top 20% of men, whether it be through finances, emotional stability, or basically being the child born with the silver spoon of men in society nowadays, that that's the only type of men that women would possibly even pay attention to. So there are actually different factions of the manosphere. It's not just this one large encompassing system. There are breakdowns into how these people actually do relate their content to different sorts of people. I'm going to be talking about the four major ones. So the most prevalent one that many people would actually be consistent with would be the men's rights activists. And many of you guys might already know a few names under this, namely Andrew Tate, or, Andrew Tate. Everyone is pretty much familiar with him. So they focus on perceived systematic disadvantages such as family court bias, male suicide rates, and educational disengagement. You also have the incels, which are involuntary celibates, men who feel unable to attract women and often interpret this as a grave injustice. This group specifically linked to misogynistic rhetoric and real-world violence. Another faction would be the MGTOW, which would be men going their own way, which is a movement of male separatism where men choose to reject relationships with women entirely to avoid what they see as a gynocentric society. And finally, my absolute least favorite would be the pickup artists, or the PUAs, those that teach methods to manipulate and coerce women into dating or sexual encounters. Now we're going to be moving into why this matters and real world consequences. I do believe that it has a very significant impact on the next generation. So research from The Independent under misogynistic chat rooms, bogus science, and rape myths, what actually happens in the manosphere. It does state that 59% of teenage boys have been served misogynistic content without even having to search for it. It has been concerningly normalized in classrooms nowadays, highlighting the startling shift in schools where teachers report an increase in violent language and the trivialization of sexual assault amongst young boys influenced by these ideologies. This was some news given by the CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network, as to what is the manosphere and why does it matter. It has also been linked to extreme violence because connected to the rhetoric to tragic real world events such as the Isla Vista killings perpetrated by individuals who radicalized these online spaces. It has also, more concerningly, caused more harm to men themselves than good, as we have discussed how these narratives exploit male vulnerability and loneliness, encouraging emotional detachment and making healthy relationships, even with oneself, much harder to achieve. The root causes of why men are drawn in, I would believe, would be economic and social insecurity, which explains the term late term capitalism that has left many men feeling alienated and pessimistic about their futures, making them vulnerable to simple stories that blame women for their struggles. A lot of them have been subject to a loss of dominance, noting that some men feel threatened by the expansion of rights for women and minority groups, viewing it as a direct loss of their own cultural authority. And finally, would be their own search for guidance. Many young men who lack positive male role models turn to charismatic online influencers for a sense of belonging and success. So, moving forward in terms of connection over condemnation, I do think that there's a need for discernment, most specifically for us to emphasize that while some parts of the manosphere are just legitimate issues like mental health, they often blend in with unfiltered, demeaning rhetoric. So, creating alternative spaces would conclude by suggesting that the solution lies in providing non-judgmental spaces where men and boys can express their feelings to find a broader, more humane understanding of what it means to be a man today. Thank you.